Okay, so good day to everyone. So this video is about the discussion discussion of chapter 7 in your subject Crim 101, and the title of this book is Victimization. So it means ang pag-uusapan natin dito is yung iba't ibang factors or reason, cost, and contributions of a person why he or she was victimized. So now let's start the discussion. So chapter 7, victimology. So traditionally, criminology focused on the individual who perpetrated the crime, which is the criminal. However, starting in 1940s, there is a new approach that was introduced, which as an added in the dimension of study of criminology. And this approach involves the study of the victims of crimes, and it's called victimology. So before we're going to discuss or to give the definition of the word victimology, pag-usapan muna natin yung brief history of victimology at yung mga tao na nag-contribute sa pag-aaral nito. So unang-una natin dyan ay si Benjamin Mendelssohn. Si Benjamin Mendelssohn is the one who coined the term victimology in 1940s. Mendelssohn was a lawyer from Bucharest, Romania, and who developed scientific method for the study of criminal acts that utilize biopsychosocial data of on the criminal, the victim, and the witnesses. Mendelssohn developed victim typologies that identified victim characteristics that might increase a person's risk of victimization. So, gumawa siya ng mga iba't iba o nag-devise siya ng iba't ibang typology according to the degree of responsibility of the victim and victimization. Meron siyang 6 na typologies or classification of victims. Una na dyan, yung tinatawag nating innocent victim. Ito ay tumutukoy sa isang tao na wala namang kahit anong contribution or hindi siya nagbigay ng kahit anong contributions, bakit siya naging isang biktima. Talagang nataon lang na siya ay nasa wrong place at the wrong time. So this is the victim we most often envision when thinking about enhancing victim rights. So, di ba ito guys, yung kadalasan na naiisip natin na senaryo o yung rason bakit ang isang tao ay nagiging isang biktima. So, pangalawa, meron tayong tinatawag natin the victim with minor guilt. So, ito ay tumutukoy sa mga tao na naging biktima na kung saan meron silang little contributions in some minor degree. So, such as frequent high crime areas. This would be a person, for example, this would be a person that continues to go to a bar that is known for nightly assault. Even though na wala siyang kinatawag natin na kasalanan o ginawa. But still, alam niya na yung lugar na lagi niyang pinupuntahan o yung pinupuntahan niyang lugar ay high crime prone area. But still, continue pa rin siyang pumupunta sa lugar na yon. Tulad ng halimbawa natin is bar. Okay? So, may pagkakataon or may chance na pwede talaga siya maging isang biktima. So, yun yung ibig sabihin ng victim with minor guilt. Pangalawa naman, natawag natin the guilty victim offender. Okay, etong classification ng victim na to ay tumutukoy ito sa mga accessory of the crime. Okay, accessory of the crime. Now, which is actually help with their victimizations. While we have also the guilty offender, guilty or victim, it means, kung mapapansin nyo sa title pa lang, yung victim dito yung una or yung pinaka-primary attacker, siya talaga yung nag-umpisa ng gulo or siya yung nag-provoke doon sa isang tao na kung saan kaya lang naging biktima ay dahil nanalo siya doon sa away o sa pinagtatalunan niyo. Nagigets ba? Kumbaga, ikaw yung naghamon ng away. For example, ikaw yung naghamon ng away. Ikaw yung naghamon ng subukan. Dahil mas malakas yung offender, ay mas malakas yung hinamon mo at natalo ka niya, kaya ka lang na considered as a victim at yung hinamon mo ay na-recognize or na-considered as the offender. While we also have here the guilty victim. Okay, ito naman, the victim instigated a conflict but is skilled in self-defense. Kumbaga, halimbawa, there is an abused woman killing her partner while he is abusing her. It's because the woman is knowledgeable about defending herself or about the self-defense. Okay? Next, imaginary victim. Ito yung mga uri ng mga tao na kung saan nagpe-pretend sila na bilang isang biktima para magbigay lang ng isang false report, or maybe ito yung mga tao na nagsasuffer or under sila ng mental illness or mental disorder whom believe they are the victims. So yan yung anim na typologies or classifications ng biktima natin according kay Benjamin Mendelssohn. Now let's move with Hans von Hentig. Sino naman si Hans von Hentig? He is a German scholar who taught at the university in the United States. So gumawa siya ng isang article or ng isang libro na pinamagatan niya na The Criminal and His Victim. And he was published it in 1941. He also developed his own typology of crime, which is consisting of 13 categories. Ito naman, nakabase naman ito sa psychological, social, and biological factors. In contrast doon sa Mendelssohn categories na nakafocus sa guilt and responsibility. Hans von Hentig is recognized as the father of victimology, but some other group, it was credited by Mendelssohn. But here in our study, mas nakilala si Hans von Hentig, that's why he was recognized as the father of victimology. So like I said a while ago, Hans von Hentig developed his own typologies. Okay, the first one, we have here the young people. Ang young people, nire-refer ito sa mga children and infant. Okay, children and infant na nagiging biktima. So ano ba yung kadalasan na reason bakit nagiging biktima yung mga children and infant? It's because they are physically weaker and have less mental power and fewer legal rights. And are economically, dumidepende lang sila sa mga caretaker nila na nagiging kadalasan na nagbibictimize sa kanila. Tulad ng parents, guardians, teachers, and so forth. They also have the potential to be exposed to a wider range of harm than adults. Moreover, okay, less able to less capable sila na depensahan yung kanilang sarili. And sometimes less likely to be believed that they seek assistance. They should seek assistance. So this includes children who suffer from emotional, physical, and sexual abuse at home because of their abusive parents. And those children who are bullied at the school because of some aspect of their appearance or their personalities. And those children who are forced into acts of prostitution or sold into slavery by their impoverished parents. Each suffers different levels and frequencies of exposures to different kinds of harm. Kaya kung mapapansin niyo, di ba guys, yung mga yung mga binanggit ko sa inyo kanina is yung like what we call that, yung mga laging naaabuso pag sexual abuse, yung mga nagiging prostitutes, okay, yung mga most na nabubulid, kadalasan sa kanila is mga kabataan. Okay. Next is the female. Okay, ito naman nagre-refer ito sa lahat ng mga kababaihan. From the contemporary points of view, kung titingnan talaga natin, women are physically weaker than men. Okay? And culturally conditions, and especially before, iba talaga yung tingin sa mga lalaki kasi sa mga kababaihan. And to accept male authority. And kadamihan sa mga babae, they are financially dependent on their men in their lives. Like, halimbawa, naka-financially poor. And to make matter worse, many Western women are conditioned to believe that their value or yung value lang nila ay nakadepende doon sa kanilang bodies or specifically their sexuality. Na yun yung isa sa mga nagiging mga kababaihan to have a low self-esteem, depressions, substance abuse, and prostitution with varying exposure to harm. Okay? Next, we have also the old. We have the young, the female, and the old. Ito, nagre-refer naman ito sa mga matatanda talaga, like halimbawa mga senior citizen. Na kung saan, like the children's and the female, they also belong to vulnerable, what do you call that, person. So they are often physically weaker and mentally less facile and may be under someone else's care. This can expose to the range of harms from the theft or of personal property to physical abuse. However, they are also particularly vulnerable to confidence scams as they can have a greater access to money along with poor memory and a sense of pride at the same time that may be combined to prevent them from reporting lost. While we also have here the defective, rather, mentally defective and deranged. Ito naman ay tumutukoy sa mga feeble-minded, okay, insane, drug addicts, and alcoholics. Na kung mapapansin nyo, sila yung mga tao na, kumbaga, they cannot control uh, the way they think. Kumbaga, hindi nila kayang kontrolin yung sarili nila, the way of decision making, and so forth. So these are those people who are suffering from any from what we call that, from any of these conditions have the altered perception consequences depending on the level of their afflictions, personality, and environment. These potential victims may harm themselves and others to varying degrees. They may have also suffered from many of the same general kinds of exposure as children and the elderly. Diba? Because dahil doon sa abilidad nila or dahil sa kung ano man yung disability na meron sila, kaya kadalasan nagiging isa sila sa mga tao na nagiging biktima. Okay? Next, we also have here the immigrants. Ito yung mga tao na mga taga-ibang lugar o taga-ibang bansa, which is the foreigners. Na kadalasan, they are unfamiliar with a given culture sa mga lugar na pinupuntahan nila. Okay? Yung mga immigrants ay tumutukoy so anyone who are traveling to a culture different from their own is a subject to a varying gaps in communication and comprehension. So this can also depends to sa mga lugar na pinupuntahan nila at sa mga tao na encounter nila. Expose expose them all manner of confidence, schemes, theft, and abuse to say nothing to marginalized. Next, we also have here minorities. Bonhentig was referring to the Russian leader's advantage. He is, as he put it, what this truly means is prejudice, groups against which there is some amount of bias or prejudice by another may be exposed to varying levels of abuse and violence. Why we also have what we call the dull normals, referring to simple-minded. Okay, simple-minded person. So ano ba guys yung simple-minded person? Yung simple-minded person is parang kaparehas din sila ng mga what we call that, mentally defective or deranged. Na kung saan, ito yung mga tao na unsophisticated, foolish, or mentally impaired. Okay, as an example of someone who been described as simple-minded is a person who cannot understand or grasp most concept and who is lacking in insight or adjective. Na because of that kind of factors or that kind of characteristic, kaya nagiging reason kung bakit sila ay nabibictimize. Next is we have the depressed. Okay? Ito naman ay tumutukoy with the various psychological maladies. So, from contemporary viewpoints, those who are depressed yung mga taong depressed ay mas exposed sila in a manner of danger, intentional and otherwise. Additionally, they may take psychotropic medication that alters perceptions, affect judgment, and impairs reasoning. While we also have here the acquisitive, referring to those who are greedy, makasarili, and looking for a quick gain. Ito yung mga tao na makasarili at gusto nila at humahanap sila ng mga bagay-bagay na mabilis lang silang kikita or makakakuha ng mga bagay na gusto nila. Such individual may suspend their judgment or intentionally put themselves in dangerous situation in order to achieve their goals. So, kumbaga, uh, pinuput nila yung sa sarili nila into a dangerous situation just only to achieve their goals, so that are acquisitive victim. Next is lonesome or heartbroken. Okay? Ito ay tumutukoy sa mga biguang puso, like widows or widowers, and those are mourning. So from a contemporary standpoint, loneliness is at epidemic proportions, with more than half of marriage ending in a divorce. Masakit naman kasi talaga yun, di ba? Nung pakasal ka, tapos ang end mo is divorce lang din pala or anal. So, this category does not apply only to those in mourning, tama ba yung pronunciation ko? Or those who are lonely or heartbroken are prone to substance of abuse and can be easy prey for con men, the abusive and manipulative. Kumbaga, ginagawang advantage ng ibang tao yung pagiging lonesome nila or pagiging heartbroken nila. Okay? Kaya kadalasan, madaling ma-victimize yung mga taong ganito. We also have the tormentor. Ito naman nagre-refer naman ito sa mga abusive parent. In a contemporary terms, there are abusive caretakers, intimates, and family member of all kinds. Abuser all such abuser expose themselves to the harm they inflict. Kaya obvious naman, yung mga abuser, mas ina-expose din nila yung sarili nila sa mga harm. Okay? That resulting against and the degree to which their victims fight back. For example, an abusive mother who gets drunk and punches a child exposes herself to a danger of injuring her hand or misjudging her strike and even her balance, and of the child punching back. So that is tormentor. Okay? That is for the example. While we also have the blocked, exempted, or fighting. Ito naman ay tumutukoy sa mga biktima ng blackmail, extortion, and confidence scam. So in contemporary times, such victims are still exposed to a continual financial loss or physical harm, or must suffer the consequences that come from bringing the police into assist. In such cases, the attention of the law enforcement and any subsequent publicity may be the very thing that can victim wishes. So that is the black, exempted, or fighting. So yan guys yung 13 classification of victim according to uh, Hans von Henry. Next, another person, we also have Stephen Scoffer. Si Stephen Scoffer naman ang sumulat ng unang libro about the victim. At he published this book on 1968. So the title of this book is The Restitutions to Victim of Crime. He also wrote a book entitled The Victim and His Criminal. So Scoffer was a lawyer born in Budapest, Hungary. Budapest by Budapest, who taught the criminology to Polytechnic of Central London, which is now called University. Si Stephen Scoffer ay isang professor din ng sociology at the Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts. So like the two, like Mendelssohn and Hentig, Scaffer also have his own types of victim. So Scaffer proposed 7 types of victim responsibility or victim precipitation, which are essentially a variation on work of victim. So we have here, meron siyang 7, meron siyang tatawag natin unrelated victims. Okay, kumbaga, pag sinabi no victim responsibility, kumbaga wala siyang contribution kung bakit siya naging isang biktima. Provocative victims, from the word provocative victims, kumbaga siya yung nagsimula or siya yung nag-provoke ng isang gulo or ng isang bagay kaya siya naging biktima. Victim share responsibility. Precipitative victims, some degree of responsibility. Biologically weak victims, no responsibility. Socially weak victims, also no responsibility. Self-victimizing, total victim responsibility. It's because pag sinabi natin victimizing, self-victimizing, siya talaga yung nagko-contribute kung bakit siya nagiging victim. Okay. Next is political victim, no responsibility. So yan lang guys yung iba't ibang type of victim according kay Now let's move to the victimology. So ano ba guys ang victimology? Kung sinabi natin victimology, ito yung tumutukoy sa isang pag-aaral about physical, emotional, and financial harm ng isang tao suffer because of illegal activities. And victim is a person whom the crime was committed. He also referred himself as the complainant or offended party. So we have 2 types of victim. So it can be either direct or indirect. So indirect or primary and indirect or secondary. So pag sinabi natin na direct or primary victim, ito yung tao na at these are those person who was actually harmed. Kumbaga ito talaga yung nasaktan o kinumitan ng offense. Halimbawa, siya talaga yung na-rape, siya yung nanakawan. Okay? Physically injuries are some of the direct or primary victim. Okay? We also have indirect or secondary victim. Ito naman ay tumutukoy doon sa pamilya o sa loved ones ng biktima. Lalong-lalo na in case of murder and homicide. Of course, halimbawa, murder homicide, wala ng taong magko-complain or wala ng taong magsasampa ng kaso, and because of that things, we can consider that the family is the secondary victim or the indirect victim, kaya pwede sila yung magsampa ng kaso para doon sa anak nila o sa pamilya nilang namatay. We also have here victim typology. Kapag sinabi natin guys victim typology, ito ay tumutukoy sa iba't ibang klasifikasyon ng biktima based on the type of crime na usually committed and or are likely to be committed against them based on their demographic profile tulad ng edad, gender, occupation, lugar ng kanilang pinagtitirahan, lugar ng kanilang pinagtatrabahuhan, and many more. So, may iba't iba tayo guys na traditional concept of victim. Unang-una, may tinatawag na victim-offender relationship. Itong victim-offender relationship ay tumutukoy ito sa relasyon ng offender doon sa biktima and vice versa. So, kumbaga, yung victim ay personal na kilala yung offender. For example, it may be his or her family, or related by him by blood, or maybe co-workers, neighbor, or classmate, or even in a relationship with each other, or even his or her loved ones. So this relationship could be a factor as to why he or she was victimized by the offender. So ano ba yung mga example ng crime na usually nangyayari sa gatong uri ng victim-offender relationship? For example, in case where halimbawa, example is in the female pala, sexual offenses. And more likely, yung mga taong nang nire-rape or nagsa-sexual abuse sa isang babae, kadalasan, ito yung mga taong kakilala nila, like relatives, di ba? Lalo-lalo na ngayon kung nanonood kayo ng mga balita, Okay? Kadalasan, sino ba yung mga nagkakaroon ng sexual abuse sa mga babae, o lalo sa mga batang babae? Di ba kadalasan, tiyuhin, tatay, kapatid, na which is blood relation pa. Or kung halimbawa, hindi man blood relation, pwedeng halimbawa yung sariling boyfriend. Okay? Kaya, yung victim-offender relationship, ito talaga tumutukoy sa relasyon ng victim doon sa offender, kaya siya nagiging isang biktima. O siya yung nagiging target na maging biktima. Next natin is victim facilitation. Yung victim facilitation, okay, this happens in situation wherein victims unknowingly, carelessly, negligently, or inadvertently make it easier to the criminal to commit a crime. Kumbaga, because of the carelessness or negligence doon sa part ng victim, nagkakaroon ng opportunity yung offender na i-commit yung crime sa kanya. Halimbawa, in case of theft or robbery. Okay? Ang victim facilitation, kumbaga, ang ibig sabihin no, pina-facilitate o kumbaga, binibigyan mo like what I said a while ago, so the victim culpability or victim provocation, dito, yung victim yung kinoconsider natin na even more responsible for the crime than the offender himself. Okay, so the good example for that is that wherein the victim suffered physical injuries because he is the one who are actually provoked the anger of the offender, which caused the offender to retaliate in a violent manner, such as it was resulted to physical fight. Then it can be said that the victim is actually the one responsible. Okay, so that is an example of victim culpability or provocations. Okay. The next one, we have victim resistance. Itong victim resistance, okay, refer to the efforts. It refers to the efforts of the victim to fight off or to repel the offender. Some victims, may mga biktima na talagang strong enough to fight back or lumaban doon sa perpetrator, or maybe he or she have the knowledge and skills in self-defense, but there are also some person, like halimbawa female, that are generally considered physically weaker, which is make them easy target or of the offender. And some people are also emotionally weaker and give in easily to the demands of the offender, while some people have a stronger willpower to resist. So that is a victim resistance. Kumbaga, because of their capability to fight back or to repel off, okay, nagiging biktima sila. We also have here victim vulnerability. Ito naman ay tumutukoy sa mga tao na na-victimize without any fault on his part. Okay? Tulad ng mga like like those person that can easily become victim because of his personal circumstances, like their age, maybe because they are too young, okay? Dahil masyado pa silang bata, hindi nila alam yung mga bagay na ginagawa nila. Diba kadalasan sa mga bata, madali silang mauto. Okay? Bigyan mo lang yan ng konting bagay na magpapasaya sa kanila, tulad ng mga laruan or mga sweet foods like candies and chocolates. Mabilis na sila kagad na mahulog yung loob sa'yo. And the state of mental health. For example, yung mga tao na may problema sa pag-iisip na which is also they don't know what is the difference between right or wrong. So kadalasan sila yung mga tao na kung saan dahil sa kahinahan nila or dahil sa pagiging vulnerable person nila, sila yung mga tao na madalas na maging biktima. What more, katulad halimbawa ng mga matatanda din. Of course, they are part of the vulnerable person at the same time. Kaya guys, kung mapapansin nyo, yung mga crime tulad ng pornography, sexual abuse, human trafficking, child labor, drug-related offense, kadalasan, ang mga parte dyan o mga nabibiktima dyan ay mga kabataan. Okay? Kumbaga because of their age and innocence, kaya madali silang maging isang victim. And because they don't know how to protect themselves at the same time. So that is victim vulnerability. Next, we also have victim blame. At ang victim blame, it is very common to hear that people blame the victims for the crime committed against him. Na kumbaga, ikaw na yung biktima, pero ikaw pa rin yung biniblame or sinisisi ng ibang ng ibang tao kung bakit ka naging isang biktima. So, for example, kaya ka na, halimbawa, isang babae na nagsusuot ng mga mag-iiksing damit. Okay? Kumbaga, kaya ka nababastos, it's because, sinisisi sa'yo, kaya ka nababastos, it's because sa uri ng pananamit na meron ka. Or halimbawa, kaya ka na-rape, it's because yung mga damit na sinusuot mo is kaakit-akit. Something like that. Na, there is a times na good siya. It's because, pinapakita sa tao na you need to be aware so that crime can be prevented. If you're going to protect yourselves from criminals. However, sisi natin sa biktima, tinatanggal natin yung blame doon sa offender. Na kung saan yung offender, iniisip niya na o nararamdaman niya na hindi niya kasalanan yung ginagawa, yung ginawa niya. It was, at kasalanan din ito ng biktima. Something like that. So, yun yung victim blame. Okay, so kumbaga, meron nga sinabi rito na kahit ano pa yung suotin ng isang babae, okay, tabas cleavage man yan, pek shirt man yan, okay, mag-sexy man sila or hindi. Kung walang taong rapist, walang mga rape. Diba? Yun yung isa sa mga, kumbaga, tinitingnan na negative thing or negative effect ng victim blame. Okay, tinatanggal natin yung kasalanan o yung sisi doon sa offender. So, that is the victim blame. Also, we have here the victim patterns. So, at the age, the gender, the marital status, educational background, level of intellect, income, occupation, lifestyle or habits, victim-offender relationship, and ecology. Yan yung mga patterns na tinitingnan natin o factors tinitingnan natin na nakaka-apekto in victimization risk. Okay? Halimbawa natin, result of various studies reveal that terms of gender, more likely ang mga lalaki ang mga mas nagiging biktima ng robbery and physical injuries. Robbery maybe because mas burara sila or hindi sila maingat kasi sa mga babae. And physical injuries, nagtakaw-away talaga ang mga lalaki kasi sa babae. In terms of economic or income naman, income or economic status naman, most likely, yung mga mahihirap, yung mga mas nagiging biktima, it's because they live in an area that are crime prone. Okay? So also, we have here in marital status, dito, according sa marital status, yung mga unmarried or yung mga single na tao, sila yung mas madaling ma-victimize. Okay? Mas madali silang ma-victimize kaysa sa mga married people. It's because yung mga married people kasi, meron na silang routine sa buhay nila. Okay, they have more stable routine and there are less active social lives. Unlike dun sa mga unmarried or mga single person, wala silang routine na araw-araw nilang ginagawa. Kaya lagi most likely iniisip nila kung ano yung bagay na gagawin nila. At kadalasan, sila yung mga kadalasan na pumupunta sa mga bar, or nakikipag-socialize kung kani-kaninang tao. It's because they are single. And also, pagdating sa psychology, naman, location of the commissions of the crime, referring to the locations or the place of the commission of the crime. According sa crime statistic, victimization occurs more in large and urban area than the rural. Kumbaga, mas mataas din yung bilang ng biktima, nagiging biktima sa urban kaysa sa rural. Di ba natatandaan nyo ba yung discussion ko sa inyo noon? Na mas mataas yung crime rate, okay, sa urban kaysa sa rural. So, hindi imposible. O, so, madalit sabi, kung mataas ang crime rate, ibig sabihin mas madami yung taong na-victimize doon sa urban kesa sa rural area. So that are the victim patterns. So yan lang guys yung discussion natin for today and for this chapter 7, the victimology. So by next meeting guys, we're gonna have a we're gonna have what we call that. We're gonna have a clarification for discussion. Magla-live ako next meeting, and also we're gonna have a quiz about this about this topic, which is the victimology. So that's all, guys. Thank you for watching and listening to this video. So magsulat kayo para mas madali niyong pag-aralan lahat ng mga dinidiscuss natin. So that's all. Thank you and God bless.